Well, as people start joining, I am going to start the webinar. So hello and welcome everybody. I'm Stephanie Pedroza, the marketing manager at Aurigo Software Technologies. And I want to thank everyone who's joining us. And I still see people are continuing to join us. So welcome everyone who's joining us in Aurigo's webinar series. And Aurigo Software has been helping capital owners manage and streamline their infrastructure programs for about 2 decades now. And in today's webinar, industry experts from the city of Las Vegas will share how they are automating their CIP planning and delivery process and discuss best practices in capital planning and construction management. A few quick notes before we get started. This webinar will be recorded and will provide all registered participants with the recording. The slides will also be provided to all registered participants. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, we ask that you submit them via the Q&A chat box below, and we will answer questions at the end of the presentation. If we don't answer all questions during the available time, we will follow up with you via email. And joining me today is my colleague and marketing director of Aurigo Software, Richard Kramer, who will be moderating today's webinar. Hello, Richard, and thank you for joining us.
Afternoon, Stephanie. Great to be here.
Yeah. And before we get started, we're going to launch a quick poll just to get to see or get to know who's in our audience. So I'm going to launch the poll now. So this just describes your role. We want to know if you're a project manager, capital planning and finance, if there's any engineers, consultants. Okay.
All right, pretty interesting. Looks like an even split between folks identifying as project management and capital planning and finance. So that's great. That's kind of what we're going to talk about. So that works out.
Yeah, and then we have a couple of engineers and a couple of consultants. All right, so I'm going to give a poll a couple more minutes because there's still a couple of people. All right, so I'm going to end and share the results so everybody can see it for a couple of minutes. All right, cool. Well, now I'm really excited to introduce our panel of experts. We have Michael Strudevan, the engineering project manager at the city of Las Vegas, with over 2 decades of experience implementing, supporting, and enhancing numerous civil engineering design solutions for the city of Las Vegas Public Works Department. Well, that was a mouthful. Sorry, Michael. And Michael serves as the primary point of contact for engineering design, as well as a subject matter expert of Masterworks. And his area of expertise includes an organizational structure and management. Michael, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
And we have Matt Klainer, the Quality Assurance Administrator at the City of Las Vegas, with over 3 decades of experience managing technical and construction projects for federal and local governments. For the past 12 years, he has served as a Quality Assurance Administrator for the City of Las Vegas, and his career with the city has spanned from serving as an evaluator on the CIP software procurement to becoming a purchasing and contract subject matter expert for the City of Masterworks, for the city's Masterworks development and implementation team. Matt, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Awesome. And now I'll pass it over to Richard Kramer.
Thank you, Stephanie. Big welcome from me to everybody in our audience. Thanks for taking the time to join us today. I am very excited for today's presentation to be talking to Matt and Mike. You know, one of the goals of this webinar series is just to give public agencies around the country, including Canada, the opportunity to learn from each other. And so we thought, what better way to do that than to talk to 2 highly experienced folks who've gone through the process of automating and streamlining some of their processes, capital planning, contracting, construction administration, and looking at those areas of the business. So I'm very excited to hear all about that. And we're going to start with Matt Klainer, who's going to give us an overview of the initiative and also tell us a little bit about the Public Works Department at the city. So go right ahead, Matt.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time. As they told us, told you, Mike and I are here. We're going to share our experience of how we selected Masterworks and what we're using it for right now and where we're going to be going in the future. We really want to thank Aurigo for asking us to share our experience, because we've learned an awful lot over the last few years, and we've learned a lot not only about the software but also about our own processes. So it was kind of cool. It's very, very interesting growth, seeing who knew what of our processes and how much we thought we knew and didn't know. So in the next 30 minutes, what we really want to do is to share the city's approach to selecting and adopting a new capital improvement software management system. We want to talk about the breadth of contracts that we're going to be managing in Masterworks. We are or will be in the future, what we're using the system for today, and where we're heading for Masterworks in the future. And most importantly, and really the biggest thing we want to share with you is what we learned along the way. I'll start with talking about a brief introduction of how we got to where we are today. Then Mike's going to talk about the technical aspects of it. So you can see from the slide, it's a very generic thing about the greater Las Vegas area. We have almost 3 million people. The city of Las Vegas has almost 140 square miles. The region is growing dramatically. We have Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, and Henderson as the primary cities in the area. Obviously, we have a multi-billion-dollar tourism industry, but the city is growing in so many different ways, both from corporate headquarters coming here, we have industry coming here, and now we have some major sports teams, as you're all aware. So the whole dynamics, demographics, and just the city itself is evolving. We have a very nice mix of urban and rural areas, and that's kind of a great place. I've been here for almost a little over 30 years, and I've watched a lot of roads change from 2 dirt roads to 4-lane highways. So it's kind of been cool to watch it grow. So getting into how we selected Masterworks, the city knew exactly what we wanted when we went into an RFP. We were so sure what we wanted. We put together a specification that had 260 pages, 3 business requirements. We had 6 primary objectives and over 500 functional requirements that we said we had to have. Everyone was number 1. So that will lead you right into our lessons learned later on, because that was not the way to approach this whole process. So let's talk a little bit about the city. We used an RFP, as I said. We had multiple firms solicit it. We had a lot of things we wanted to consider. One was the diversity in the type of contracts that we need to manage. We had a very strong need for something that would integrate with our financial system, which is Oracle. And then we had to realize that we're going to be starting off with Public Works managing or their projects in Masterworks, but ultimately other departments might as well. Unlike a lot of other public agencies, operations and maintenance is not part of Public Works. So we're going to be talking about primarily contracts related to construction and new construction, and maintenance contracts are not part of this process at this time. As you can see from this slide, every one of these things or type of contract Public Works would manage. We have over 150 facilities, 85 parks. We have almost 1,400 miles of arterials and residential roadways, sanitary sewer systems, very robust stormwater collection system with multiple components. And we also have a full water treatment facility. And so every one of these types of projects may have architectural needs, civil needs, they may have different type of oversight needs. So if you can go to the next slide, please. We can talk about, at any given time, we have about $300 million of active projects. And here we said it ranges from $100,000 to $100 million. We've had projects as low as $5,000, and probably $100 million is a good cap on it. We have contracts that could be studies, they could be designs, they could be oversight such as construction management. And then just to make things more fun, we have 15 to 20 just common funding sources. And most of them have sub-sources. So maybe some of these might have 8 sub-sources. And of course, we start off with one set of financial funding sources, and it will change 4 or 5 times throughout the project. And not only does it change at the project level, it changes at the line item level within contracts. So we had to have a system and develop a system that could actually work and allow us to adapt to our funding needs. Then the city also has a very robust in-house capabilities. We have civil engineering, architectural, you can see from the list, survey, environmental, construction management. Our transportation engineering is becoming more and more robust over the years as smart cities is coming into play and automated autonomous vehicles. And we have just really, really cool set of in-house capabilities. So we have to be able to manage our in-house contracts as well, because those always need additional support. If you go to the next slide, please. So along with the services that I just mentioned, we may also subcontract out or contract out a variety of different services, everything on this list. And as you can see, and for those of you in the industry, you know that one size does not fit all for contract management. So we needed a system that has a good foundation, a good basis, but we could adapt along the way. And so from there, what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and have Mike pass it on to Mike. He'll talk about the technical aspects of it, and I'll join back a little later or chime in as Mike needs a little bit of assistance. So go ahead, Mike.
Thanks, Matt. That was a great introduction. Thanks very much. So yes, as you said, Mike's going to be chatting. I think we're going to start, Mike, with a project that's near and dear to your heart, which was the Vegas Main Street refab. So go right ahead, Mike.
Hi, my name's Mike Sturdivant, as you've probably heard a few different times. I just wanted to throw a little background at me. Looking at the poll, it looked like it was 11% engineers. I'm hoping you're all civil engineers. You know, I wanted to make some engineering jokes, but I think I'm gonna have to go with the driving a train one, because that one's kind of universal for the whole audience. But I started at the city back in 1996 as a basic design engineer doing storm drain. And I worked my way up to doing large roadway projects. And this particular one was really important to me. If you've ever been to Las Vegas Boulevard is what you know. Well, this is Main Street. To me, this is my Las Vegas Boulevard. It was a older road, needed some work. We converted some two-way streets into one-way streets. And it was a very intensive project. And you'll see in a later slide, we started Masterworks in 2016, and that's when I got called on to it. So I was doing Masterworks and this project at the same time, and it just came out really good. So if you ever come to Las Vegas, drive north from the Strip, and when you get past the Stratosphere, you'll see the Showgirls sign. That was on one of the earlier slides. That's the crowning achievement of my career, second to Masterworks. Let me put that. I started out on Masterworks as just a subject matter expert in the engineering design section. And I think I went to every single meeting, and I feel like I'm a subject matter expert in all things city. And tomorrow's my retirement party. So I think I peaked a little late. So we can jump on into the drivers for change. The city really wanted to get their data consolidated into a single location. You know, we had, Word documents with things, we had stuff in spreadsheets, we had Expedition for our construction management, we had a project tracking Henderson that we would have kept some of our financial data in, and we used Oracle. We had things a bit scattered around. But the main driver was in our construction management group, our software down there, our licensing was going away. And so we really needed to get construction management software on board. But instead of just going with, let's get the new version of Expedition and have our construction management group all organized and centralized, let's do it for everyone. Let's get, from the beginning of a project to the end, let's get all of that into one system. So the driver was small. It was our construction management, and it turned into this big, wonderful endeavor that I feel like it was worth it. And you'll see as we talk through some of the benefits that we have received from switching to Aurigo's Masterwork product. looking at my notes here when you see me look down. So let's jump on to the next slide here, which talks about the team. We knew this was going to be impacting, multiple units in the city. So we had subject matter experts from the engineering design section, from the architectural section. We have the most amazing finance team in the world. I cannot sing their praises enough. Their participation, involvement, and input was key. They're the money people, and they were just absolutely amazing. We brought in our purchasing department. We have probably 20 departments at the city. This was primarily for the public works department, but we know that we don't work in a silo, and we work with these other groups. And so we needed to bring those key people into the project, and that is very important. We also brought in our information technologies group because our plan was to integrate our financial services. We use Oracle, and to have that tied to Masterwork so the data would flow back and forth. So the IT group, very important. Another consideration that everyone should have when doing this. The process that really helped was getting these groups together and talking about how everything worked currently. When design does something, how does that impact our construction management group, our purchasing, our finance, and map everything out, figure out what the processes are currently using, Word, Excel, emails, phone calls, texts, post-it notes on monitors, and what can we capture in that. That was used to develop the voluminous bid documents that Matt referred to earlier, and that we are definitely going to touch on in the lessons learned. Can't stress that part enough. If all you take away is take away our lessons learned. So one of the things that we did is, after we looked at all these processes, is the subject matter experts, they were picked because they were the best of the best, me included. I'm going to pat myself on the back. Being at the city for 20 years at the point when we started this, I know how we used to do it. I know how things had changed. I know why they changed. I know what had flexibility in it. I was given the authority to change some of these processes. Now, I wasn't going to go completely crazy and say, like, hey, we don't need to bid projects anymore. We're just going to hire Mike's contracting. It's flexibility within our internal processes that I saw some opportunities and was able to, leverage the development of this to enhance them. And so in the overall win part, we did away with some antiquated processes. And I'm not going to lie, we did away with one process I personally didn't like. So to everyone out there that's a subject matter expert, this is a chance. You can put your fingerprint on it, and it feels more like you own it when you do something like that. So we're going to jump to the next slide, and we're going to talk about our implementation timeline, multi-phase approach. This will be in the lessons learned as well. We kicked off the project December 2016, jumped in, met with Aurigo, did a lot of discovery meetings, started developing. We originally got our capital planning phase out. That's our budgeting stuff at the beginning of the project when you're planning and everything. We got the first part of that developed so we could start trying it out. Then we hit a bad date. Our construction management software was going away basically in December of 2017. We were able to hold on to our licenses and servers for a little bit longer, but what we did is we got together with Aurigo and said, let's get construction management going. We created a streamlined, simple, very minimalistic version of it. And so we were able to get that system developed and deployed by May of 18. It kept our construction management group going. Then we were able to go back with some experiences that we had gained cloning or copying one of our budgets in the phase one of our capital planning to really finalize the process. And then we started doing our budget in the system in 2018. I think this year is our 5th year of doing the budget in the system. Talk a little bit more about that on the next slide, I believe. Then we finished up the construction management because that was our heavy users. They were in the system. We were getting great feedback from them. We jumped ahead, finished the construction management portion. And then so now we have our planning, our construction closeout in the end. Then we filled the gap in the middle with the design management, the integration, and everything else. The shape of this one's a square, the shape of this one's a circle. Getting in between the two was a challenge, but we did it. And again, hold on for the lessons learned. You'll get some you'll get some input from Mike there. So let's get to our greatest success on the next slide, which was automating our capital and improvement process.
Thanks, Mike. If I can just jump in for 1 second here and just mention to our audience members that I think this is a fairly, somewhat typical type of implementation for a large city like Las Vegas, but everybody's miles vary. So if you want to understand what an implementation for your organization might look like, please reach out to us and we can have that discussion. So yes, now we're going to jump to the capital planning process, like you mentioned, Mike, and kind of do a deep dive into how this part was streamlined. So go ahead.
Perfect. Thanks, Richard. That's a much better segue because it's 2 very different topics there. And it's good to let people know their mileage is going to vary on the implementation. And we will hit that in the lessons learned as well. I appreciate that. So automated CIP, what does that mean? At the City of Las Vegas, we have a pretty robust budgeting cycle. We start in October the year before, and we have several steps. We have a call for projects. We reach out to all the departments. Hey, what projects do you want to have next year? I would put in a project. Mike wants his own building with his name on the front, swimming pool, all of that. Everyone submits the different projects they wanted. Then we go through and we look at existing projects that are going to be moving into the next fiscal year that might require additional funding because now Mike wants a roof on his swimming pool that he managed to sneak through the system last year. And then we have just our standard carryover projects that we all have, like my Main Street project. It was on the books for over 10 years through the planning studies and everything. So they last throughout the budget cycles and they have to be carried forward for, regulatory purposes, budgeting, forecasting, all of those things. Then we take all that information, put it together, management, goes through, looks at everything, and then we create a tentative budget in April. This is where our finance group was absolutely invaluable in this process. They know their stuff and they really helped us out. And so we really wanted to make this work. The old way that we did it was people would have, every project had a spreadsheet that would have the basic project data. And then you would have your sales pitch. You would have your, Mike's building's going to look great. It's going to provide this benefit to the, society and all the stuff that you would put into it. People could do this in Word. They would do it in front page. It was just a lot of different formats. And what we would do is we use SharePoint and everything kind of got routed into there. We have a single point vetting manager who would look at things and say, hey, you need to maybe do a little bit more work on this. And, we would check the budgets because, I put in for my building and said it was going to cost $50,000 trying to sneak it by management. That I would get caught by the vetting manager and say, no, Mike, that's a $5 million project. So, nice try. And we were able to do all of that in Masterworks. The individual sponsors for each department goes into Masterworks now, and they fill out all that information in the system. This is how much we think it's going to cost. This is what we think the impact on the operating budget's going to be. If someone had a grant, they could say, look, I'm already bringing $500,000 to the table. I only need another $200,000 to make this project a reality. And they could also attach these scoping booklets that we called them, where they could really show what their project was. So now all of this gets directly entered by the sponsors, and it's all in a single place already. A vetting manager goes through, She looks at it and she can reject it or ask for more information. It's all routed internally. All the data is in the same place, so you don't have someone changing a scoping booklet and forgetting to upload it. So once we get through that process, we're able to generate a spreadsheet that has what all the asks are. You know, these are all the asks for the new project. These are the asks for ones that are existing. And then our finance group will go in there and say, this is how much we have projected available for the following year. And we present that to management. We get the information back, go in, do updates, and just wiggle stuff around, but it always stays in the system. You know, we have the document management system in there. People can put in different versions of their scoping booklet, always have the current one attached. So you have your legacy data, and it's really good to have it all centralized. And I believe we're on our 5th cycle where we've done the budget in there, and it gets a little easier each year. Was the head trainer, and the first year we had to train a bunch of sponsors. It was new to a lot of people. As the subsequent years went on, sponsors would be like, oh, I remember I did this last year. And then we would have a new sponsor come on, and you would get, you know, the deer in the headlights look. And the person sitting next to would be like, I did it last year, it's no big deal. And so it's just, the momentum is just wonderful that we've built on this. And so it's really been handy automating this whole budget process. And that really sets the groundwork that once the budget's approved, our projects will move from the plan stage. They become real projects. They get assigned out to our architects and engineers, and then we can run from there. And that's really on the next slide is the project results. Is we now, on my end as an engineer, my project's in the system. I have all the background of what was, you know, what thought was put into it, what the expected scope is, and then I can take it from there. I can do my design contracts with consultants. I can do some bidding functions through there. It's helping us build up a database of bid pricing. On the engineering world, the cost of a square yard of 4-inch asphalt is a heated topic. You have 4 engineers, you're going to have 5 opinions. I mean, we're a wild group, let me tell you. We don't just drive the train, we fight over asphalt pricing. We can manage our permits in there. You know, we get a permit from an entity, we put it in the system, we put the expiration date, it tells us, hey, Mike, your permit's about to expire. It's really handy. One of the most important ones is we have a project log in there. It was called an issue log, but the word issue around here kind of raises eyebrows. So it's a project log. It allows us just to put information in there that management can come in and see, like, you know, hey, today I met with the gas company, or I met with the property owner, and it's wonderful. It keeps track. Everything's all in one location. We have our budgeting in there. We keep our schedules in there. You know, the boss wants to know when this project's going to bid. They don't have to try to find me. You know, they can just look in the system and go, oh, it's going to be 2nd quarter of next year. And so it really puts all the information in one area. We have some wonderful reporting tools that we've been able to develop. We can click on it. You can get a snapshot of one whole project, of all the things in the project log, or you can say, show me everything in construction. Just show me the most recent open or hot topics in there. We're able to escalate those issues. I can put an escalation level of 2 on it, and it shows up on my supervisor's dashboard. So I talk to him, I'm like, you know, hey, Jeremy, I really need you to help me out with this. But I also put it on there. So when he comes in, looks at his dashboard, and he's like, oh yeah, got to help out Mike. And then he can go in there and put notes in it. It's just really helpful in our day-to-day project management. It's, you know, we're easing into it, but we have early adopters that are really loving everything about it. We do have some additional features that I believe Matt talks about later, or I can just allude to, but we do have it fully integrated with our Oracle system. We just haven't turned that on for a particular project. So right now, when transactions happen in Oracle, it flows into Masterworks and we have all the information there. But right now, we're not paying invoices out of the system. But what we do have is the contractors making their submittals directly into it. If they have a request for information, they do it directly into it. Comes into our construction management group, they look at it and said, I'm not touching this one, and they send it to me. Get my notification, I can go in there, provide the response. It's been amazing seeing it roll out and get used. Just in time for me to retire. So this
Thanks,
really,
Mike.
yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I'm seeing a couple of questions come in from the audience. So folks, if you have anything else you'd like Matt and Mike to elaborate on, keep those questions coming, and we'll get to them in a few minutes.
Yeah. We're gonna hit the lessons learned, which is the real meat and potatoes that I think is, I mean, you don't care that I can put an issue log in there, but you probably want to hear what I wish I'd done differently. Because our deployment is absolutely perfect, but we could have done better. Going back to the topic that Matt mentioned, we went out there and we said these 500 things are the most important things in the world, and Masterworks can do that. What we should have done is said we want a system that will manage projects from beginning to end, and then looked at what Masterworks had out of the box. And we could have looked at what they already had built. We went into it and said, this is how we do it. This is kind of what we want it to feel like. This is what Expedition looked like. We kind of want it to feel like that. And we really, I think we lost out on an opportunity. We should have said, this is our current process. How does your system handle it? What's its style? I'm going to go into a little sidebar on what style is to me. Style is when I tell Matt, hey, meet me at Red Lobster for lunch at around noon. I don't tell him how to get there. I don't tell him to take the freeway. I don't tell him to take the surface street. We both get to Red Lobster around noon. We have lunch. Getting from City Hall to Red Lobster is style. The key thing is we get to Red Lobster. That's the data. So you have your data points. Is it going to record all the data points we need? And the more style that you allow to occur, the better your adoption is going to be, but it allows for flexibility of a new manager to come in and say, I want this process to be slightly different. And you're like, well, cool. There's enough style flexibility in the system to do that. If you're also in an organization or the type that wants everything rigidly done, you can build workflows. This has to happen before this has to happen before this has to happen. But I really think looking at what the system does before you jump in there and start customizing it, buy the car, drive it around a little bit, do the test drive. You know, don't just look at the car on the showroom floor and say, paint it red. You might have liked the blue. I'm going to throw this next one to Matt for the technical expert part of it, and perhaps embellish a little bit more on the out of the box part if you need to, Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I will talk a little bit more about the out of the box, because one of the things that we looked at was, now that we started our development, we realized we had all these requirements, but we didn't have a decent flow set up of what our process actually looked like from inception to completion. And this goes into the third bullet. We'll talk about the technical experts from we said both sides. It's really all sides. Is our subject matter experts are experts in their field, and we get kind of an idea of what happens all around. What we found is a lot of the support departments, like our finance department, our purchasing department, and even individuals who are subject matter experts that came from the outside that actually had to do everything from the beginning to end themselves, had a really decent idea of what the process looked like. So we ended up putting together a big old flow chart where we kind of had one strip going down the middle that was, well, what Mike referred to, coined the happy path, is that if everything went well, this is what a project would look like. And then we put all the little sidebar stuff off to the side. So for example, if you had a contract that was just a basic project-specific contract, that would be down the middle. And then we talk about blanket contracts or task order contracts or anything else as a side shoot. And we wanted to make sure we understood how to do the basics before we started trying to do some of the more difficult or challenging activities. So we can't stress enough, and Mike alluded to our finance department. They were incredible. The feedback they gave us, and in that finance becomes purchasing as well, because they're the ones who see and touch every single part of our projects from inception to the end. They work on the budget with us. They work on all the different contracts. They work on the closeout. They work on the invoices. Mike is an engineer. He works on getting the money put together, and he works on the design contract. He pushes it off to construction management, and he may not see a lot of the information from our material testing contracts or our geotechnical or even our construction management. He only sees things that come back with that he has to address as in an engineering capacity. So our support groups, it was cool because what you realize is in a lot of cases, they knew our process better than we did. And having them help us develop this big flow chart of what we used and what we needed, it goes back to what we thought we needed versus what we actually needed. And then using your solicitation more of as a performance specification, like Mike said, this is kind of what we think we need. Show us what you can do. We'll talk to the subject matter experts and see how much we can use out of the box versus, you know what, I really, really need this thing to be in a purple pen and I'm not going to budge. And that's the type of decisions we have to make along the way. So please, if it can offer anything, do not limit the involvement of your support departments or non-public works departments or non-operation departments. Don't limit them to their scope. Let them participate in the whole process. Hear their questions because they're going to ask something that you didn't think of.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier the project phasing. We've done it in 5 phases. You know, Richard stepped in and gracefully pointed out that, you know, everyone's is going to be different. I think ours could have been different, but having that deadline of our licensing sunsetting for Expedition did rush us ahead on the construction management. We had to do it. Aurigo was there. We did it. But what I feel that we lost by maybe not planning ahead as the city was when we made the decision to go ahead and finish building the construction management section before we did the design. Now, to be terribly selfish again, I'm a design engineer. I really wanted to spend more time on my process. I said, I've been here for years, guys. I'm a subject matter expert. I really want to put my fingerprints on it. But you know, the group decision and some other stuff behind the scenes that really drove us to doing what I felt was out of order. And so when we had to bridge that gap in the middle, I feel like my design part is too much of a clone of construction. And so if we had done, you know, the budgeting, then we had done the design and then construction and closeout, I would have felt the flow would have been better in there. But you know, we had a steering committee and other deadlines and other things that came in there that had it go that route. But if you are going to phase it, look at it, look at the logic, look at the connectors, and make sure that it does make sense. And you're not going to make everyone happy. You know, I was probably the only one in the group that was really being pouty about it, but I feel like a phased approach is good. It eases people into it, and just make sure that your phasing makes sense is just what I want to drive home there. And then, because that really is going to go into the last point, but you need to account for the ongoing maintenance. You know, this is going back, I guess, to the car analogy. You got to get the oil changes. You know, you have to replace the windshield wiper blades. In the desert, you park out, you know, you don't use them very much. So when you go turn them on that one time during the, you know, 4-inch-per-hour downpour, and they peel right off, you know, you have to keep that going. Support is key. Right now, I'm one of the 2 system administrators. I was the head trainer, and I'm the guy that everyone calls because I was the trainer. I was in front of the room. Everyone knows me. Again, I've been here forever. They can't wait to stop seeing me. But yeah, you need to diversify and have as many experts as you can. Yeah, that if that means getting more subject matter experts in at the beginning or sharing the knowledge, getting more people involved in the training, we did. We had gentleman Dom. He's absolutely amazing. He got invited to one meeting, and then I went on vacation. Then I had a half a dozen eye surgeries. He just had to, trial by fire. He stepped in and learned, and he's an expert in it. And so he's backup. He's taking a bigger role in it. Someone else, Bonnie, she got involved with it, and then she transferred to the treatment plant. Well, now they're implementing it out there. They already have an expert on site, and it's going really, really well. So the more experts you have, the better it's going to be. And the training, I'm going to miss that the most. I really, really love doing the training. I like this talking. I mean, I could talk for days. I like to be up and pacing around while I'm doing it, but just plan on a lot of training and the growing pains. You're going to have the the grumpy people that I don't want to change. I want to keep doing this on a post-it note. This is all I need to run a project. I'm kind of like that. To the people that come in, the new hires, they're not going to have known anything different. There's going to be no growing pains there. You'll have everything in between, and you just have to talk to them, listen to them, and honestly, valid points are brought up. And the nice thing is the system can be adjusted. It's like, well, how come I have to keep doing this? That's a project manager thing. And I'm trying to get defensive for the project managers. I'm like, no, that's a construction management thing. Management steps in, settles the fight. We adjust the workflow. All of a sudden, the project managers have to do it now. You win some, you lose some. But those are the kind of things that you're going to have. You're going to get it out there. You're going to get it going. You got to adjust the tire pressure. You also got to change the windshield wiper blade. And you got to learn how to drive it. It's maybe the steering wheel's on the other side and you're not used to it, but eventually you get it. I mean, Windows 11. I mean, come on, I don't even want that, but it's going to happen one day and I'll get used to it. So that's really, I mean, I could go on for days, but we probably have some questions, and we do have a couple more slides here. So I will shut up for a minute.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. That was great. And thanks to both of you. Those were some really good stories and lessons learned. So yeah, before we get to the questions, I think we're going to chat a little bit about some upcoming initiatives that Aurigo and the city are exploring together. So go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, Mike, the only thing, and I appreciate everything, the only thing I would add to the phasing is if I could do anything different, I would have suggested starting the integration with Oracle or your accounting system, if that's going to be your basis up front, so we could actually roll it out and integrate it into each of the phases. We did that awful late in the process just because of default. And as Mike said, we've went ahead and Aurigo has already developed everything that was required as part of the solicitation. They've already got everything ready. We've tested it all. We went through our user acceptance testing, and we've made all our tweaks along the way. And I think in some cases, they probably know our processes better than we do, just because they're the ones who ask all the questions to develop it. We are doing a very slow, systematic rollout. As Mike said, we have integration with Oracle set up, but we haven't turned it on all the way. Part of it is because a lot of times we've changed our processes since we started this multiple years ago, and we have to make some tweaks to the system to accommodate our changes. And so as we're rolling things out, we're providing additional feedback saying, we know we told you to do it this way, but now we have to go ahead and look at things a little bit backwards. So we are systematically rolling things out like we did, because we have our construction portion built first. We have our construction projects online. We're now bringing our design contracts online. And yes, they're very similar, but as I said earlier, they have their own idiosyncrasies. So this is what we're working through. So when we built the system, when we went out for the solicitation, we had a vendor management review. And what this really is just, we call them scorecards. Just as our consultants or contractors complete a project, we evaluate them, but halfway through, and then we evaluate them again at the end. The system was built exactly the way we asked for it. We made a couple of tweaks along the way because that's what the city does. I mean, we start something and we just say, yeah, we want to do it a little bit differently. We are about 90% there. We have to just have it adjusted for a couple of the tweaks we made in the last 6 to 8 months, and then we're going to be rolling that out. That's important because the last bullet on this page is the statement of qualifications. Well, depending upon how people do during their evaluations, they can earn points to help with their ranking when we do our annual statement of qualifications, which I'll get, our biannual statement of qualifications, which I'll talk about in a second. The other thing is I mentioned the happy path and the flow chart and kind of going all the way through and developing a process on what the basics are. Now we turn around and we're going to be bringing blanket contracts online. And when we do that, we have to go ahead and run everything we did from a regular contract. Now we're going to be doing blanket contracts, and they're kind of managed outside of the project, but the task orders are managed inside the project. So we have a few tweaks we have to make along the way, especially learning how the funding sources are going to work. And then the statement of qualification packages at the very end. It's like I said, it's a biannual thing. We reach out to everybody. On the, I don't know, the second or third slide, I showed all those different services we may need. Well, we ask everybody to submit a package in, and every 2 years, and we rank them, and we use them to help guide our consultants that we select for projects. It isn't you must have these things, but we try to follow them in order, and these are the people we try to reach out to as much as possible. The system was developed exactly the way we asked for it, but we've made changes to that as well. And now that we're bringing that online in Masterworks, we're not going to make this February's rollout for this statement of qualification, because that's still probably about 1.5 years out before we really get it dialed in. But it is something the system will be doing, and then we're going to be able to capture the points that we got from the vendor management and actually have it help us with our rankings. So we have a lot of really cool stuff that the system can do. We haven't brought it all online. We know it works the way it was designed. Now we just have to go ahead and decide if we want to use it the way it is designed, or if we need to go ahead and massage it a little bit. But the key is as you're going through any software system, whether it's Masterworks or anything else, and you're going ahead and you're developing and you're customizing it, really take a look to see what things it can do out of the box. Because if we had done that a little bit earlier in this process, we may have had a few less tweaks in the system, and it might have sped up our development or rollout a little bit easier. But it surely was a very great learning experience. It will do exactly what we have asked it to do, and we're looking forward to see what we can use it for in the future.
Yeah, thanks so much, Matt. I think one of the other lessons here is that capital programs are complicated and difficult, and enterprise software can be complicated and difficult. So you really need the right partner to be with you for sort of the long haul. So I wanted to thank you two for being such great partners, and everybody else at the City of Las Vegas. We've had a great time working with you folks for the last few years, and we look forward to what we're going to build together in the future. So I'm going to hand back to Stephanie now, and we can go through some of the audience questions.
Yeah, there were a couple of questions coming in, and yeah, thank you guys so much. It was a great presentation. It looks like the audience was very happy with it. So one of the questions they want to know, are you guys using Masterworks for your CIP project prioritization?
Currently, we're not, but we do have, going back to our call for projects, is we do have a 1 to 10 prioritization field available. And we had it limited where someone could submit 3 projects. You can only have one number 1 priority, one number 2 priority, and one number 3 priority. So we do have that built into the system, but we're not using it. We adjust priorities based on other. Boy, there's no diplomatic way to say this, is there? there's other factors that go into how things are prioritized, but the system does have a priority area in there that can be used. I hope that answers it.
Yeah. And just to let everybody know, Aurigo does offer a project prioritization option in the system, but like Michael said, you need to get to know the software to know exactly what we offer. But hopefully that answers kind of elaborate to that question. The next question, they want to know, with everything that you shared, I believe at 90% complete, how long has the implementation taken? So they did see the implementation timeline. So would you say it's pretty much complete, or how long did it take?
I'm getting a weird feedback here. Sorry, that's why I stopped. We did kick off the the discovery phase in 2016, and it was at the end of it was February 28th-ish that we were fully live in the system. So we're looking at about 4 years for full implementation, and we did have usable portions. Like we had the May of 2018 release, and so we have the whole package that we had contracted for and that we're using has been available since basically the end of February, and it's just the changes as we go, and so we can just keep adding things. Like they have a right-of-way module that the city might consider in the future. So we bit off a big piece and got it out there, and now we're as we use it, we can see other things that we can go. So I think we're really 100% with the system we have, and we can get that. We use 90%, and we'll get that last 10% just through user adoption and finding time to learn the nuances of the features that we haven't switched on.
Awesome. Now, the next question, are you currently using Masterworks for quality management in any way?
The quality management to me feels like it's really going to be wrapped into the consultant and contractor evaluations that Matt was talking about, that he's working on ongoing, along with our statement of qualifications. Quality management to me is really done at the human level, as an engineer looking at things, but we certainly use it to track issues that we have. We track comment matrices in there, and so if that's the quality that you're asking about, really on the engineering end, it's outside, but we document everything in there. And again, with scoring consultants, if I didn't answer that right, or if I answered the wrong intent, just throw something down there in the chat, and we can try to tune that answer a little bit. But yeah.
So Mike, I might add that we in construction, we do handle submittals, we handle RFIs and RFI responses. So if you're looking at sharing of information back and forth between the contractors and our consultants through the city, that information is captured in the system, and it is recorded and it's documented and timestamped. So it does have some quality related features associated with it that we are utilizing at this time. And there are more that we can bring online that we haven't brought online yet.
Awesome, thank you. So yeah, if hopefully that answered. If not, just please type something in there, and we still have a lot of questions coming in, but good thing we have time. So the next one, what is one feature of Masterworks that you didn't know you needed, but are now considering essential?
I think with our demand for 500 different things, we probably haven't run across that yet. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Matt? I am.
Yeah, I think you're right. We've been focusing so much on trying to develop and bring out what we asked for and what we need for our daily operations and bringing that stuff online and learning it, that we really haven't had too much time to play outside to see what it can do that we didn't ask for yet. It's a great question, but I don't think we're ready to answer it yet.
Yeah, and I think my biggest wow moment was looking at the project dashboard and showing me that I had several issues that I had escalated that were overdue, and several that were, we can set deadlines on them. And I looked at it and there was a whole bunch of them that are yellow. I'm like, oh no, I didn't do these tasks. And so, I guess it keeping me honest, it was kind of like, wow, this, we had talked about it, but seeing it happen in real life was kind of a wow moment. I really love the project log.
I'm gonna go with the next question. I was on mute. Yeah, thanks. So the next question, do you route design deliverable reviews within the system? For example, capturing comments from different sections, divisions, such as engineering, operations, etc.
Yes, absolutely. The design submittals come into the system. Ultimately, they'll come in from the consultants. We just haven't set them up to log in, but it'll come to the project manager, and anyone that's a user in the system, we can route the submittals directly to. They can make the comments on it. There's places for them to put their comment responses in. Another one of the things the city does is for our plans, we actually take it out of the system and set up a Bluebeam session. But once that Bluebeam session's closed, we'll collapse that session, the comment matrix, load it back into Masterworks, and return it back to the consultant in the system. So it keeps everything in that design submittal. And like I said, we're minutes away from having the consultants do it themselves, where it'll actually return directly to them. But we also have the system set up because we do significant in-house design where we can route our own projects. But yeah, anything that comes in from a consultant gets logged in as a design submittal, gets routed. Now for external routing, if like we have to send something to our local regional transportation commission, they're not users of Masterworks, but we have a place in there that we can say, we sent this over to XYZ over RTC on this day, and we can track it. We send it over to them when they get their comments back. We can attach their comments and say a comments received back, February 23rd, and have them attached in there. And it really creates a complete package for those design submittals. It's really slick.
Thank you. All right, next question. They keep coming, so that's good. Thank you, guys. How does the airport use this for AIP, CIP projects and grant tracking?
So we're not part of the airport. So this would be just City of Las Vegas projects themselves. I do not believe that the airport is using the software, or if they are, I'm not aware of it. So we use it to track our projects in a variety of different ways. People enter projects in from they call for projects, as Mike said. We go ahead and we fund them through the process. We can track statuses. Mike has worked with our other folks, and we have reports that we can generate and prepare out of the system that can be provided to management and others as far as what the status is and with the progress notes. So we use it for a variety of different ways. We have the information is all in the system. It just depends on what kind of report you want to use to pull out of it. I'm not sure if that gets to where you need to be on that question.
Yeah, and there was another question that came in asking if any airports in the US or Canada are using Aurigo. Richard, you might want to help me. So Aurigo does help airports. I want to say Port of Portland is one of our customers that uses Masterworks, but we'll be happy to contact you and just give you more information on how we can benefit airports.
Yeah, it's absolutely works for airport construction too. PDX is one of our customers, and I want to say they won like best airport in the country for like 6 years in a row or something. So
It is a great airport.
They got to be doing something right over there. Yeah.
It
Awesome.
might be worthwhile, it might be worthwhile mentioning that when you're doing your development, you need to look at your roadway or transportation projects very different than you do from your vertical projects or your buildings, because typically your roadway and transportation projects will be all line item based with a few allowances, where your vertical projects tend to be more lump sum with a lot less allowances and a lot less line items. So as you're going through your development, you need to keep this in mind. That was one of the learning curves that we had, is that, as Mike likes to point out, he's an engineer and he thinks of everything on a line item basis. And our lead architects kept on saying, well, that's perfect, but it doesn't work for us. So as you're doing these, kind of keep in mind of your entire user base, not just the person sitting in front of the keyboard at that given moment.
Awesome. All right. So we got about 2 minutes and there's still a couple more questions. So you had mentioned that you used SharePoint at one time. Has Masterworks replaced that, or are you still using SharePoint?
For the budget process, we no longer use SharePoint, but the city as a whole does use SharePoint for other purposes. Because again, we really did Masterworks for the Public Works Department. Even though we've pulled a few people into our world, SharePoint is still a staple at the city for other purposes.
Okay. And now 2 more questions. We have about a minute left. So do you align with Pmi Methodologies? And if so, how does Masterworks support this?
I'm going to go with the deer in the headlight look here.
We know what PMI is. We aligned everything with the way that the city processes are. And we developed everything based on our processes. Some of them directly align with PMI, others are a little bit off of it. But in general, we have it set up that we can collect the information we need to support our activities and to demonstrate that we're managing projects effectively. And that question will get you halfway there, I think, the response.
Awesome. Well, we are out of time. I know we have a couple of questions that weren't answered. So as I mentioned earlier, if we don't get to your questions, we will follow up with you via email. But I want to thank everybody for joining us. Michael, Matt, it was a pleasure having you guys here. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And I want to wish everyone a good afternoon, good morning. I know everyone's in different time zones, so have a great rest of the day, everybody. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.